It's time once again to take a journey. So turn on the lights, pull your chair up, get a little closer to the computer, and get ready, because the journey's about to begin. You find yourself alone, late at night, driving in the mountains of North Carolina. You're lost, you think to yourself, but no, something is calling you. Something is drawing you in. You turn your radio on, and there it is, a faint station, wafting in and out of the static of the night. A man named Erik, running a show called the Midnight Cafe, calls to you. The conversation seems strange at first, but as you listen, as his voice fades in and out of the static, you realize this is where you were meant to be. This is what you were meant to listen to. For the next 2 hours, you and I will take a journey, because I am Erik, and this is the Midnight Cafe. We will take a journey that takes us from the normal, well, all the way through to the paranormal and beyond. We'll talk about the knowns and the unknowns, and everything in between. And together, perhaps we'll make a little sense out of this crazy world we all live in. Join us tonight and every Saturday night from 7 o'clock till whenever. It's time once again to take a journey. So turn on the lights, pull your chair up, get a little closer to the computer, and get ready, because the journey's about to begin. You find yourself alone, late at night, driving in the mountains of North Carolina. You're lost, you think to yourself, but no, something is calling you. Something is drawing you in. You turn your radio on, and there it is, a faint station, wafting in and out of the static of the night. A man named Erik, running a show called the Midnight Cafe, calls to you. The conversation seems strange at first, but as you listen, as his voice fades in and out of the static, you realize this is where you were meant to be. This is what you were meant to listen to. For the next 2 hours, you and I will take a journey, because I am Erik, and this is the Midnight Cafe. We will take a journey that takes us from the normal, well, all the way through to the paranormal and beyond. We'll talk about the knowns and the unknowns, and everything in between. And together, perhaps we'll make a little sense out of this crazy world we all live in. Join us tonight and every Saturday night from 7 o'clock till whenever. Hey guys, it's Erik, the owner of the Midnight Cafe, live with
Rocket Woody. How are you guys?
Doing all right myself, my friend. It's going to be a bumpy ride from the look of things so far, but we are going to give it a shot. Go ahead and get our ugly mugs in here. There we are.
There we are.
Yeah, live on the road. I hope you guys can see us. Sorry for any quality issues. Bandwidth is an issue. We're doing this with a laptop instead of a real computer, so that's an issue. And we're just trying, man. We're trying, but we're here. Hope you all are here. Look, we got 10 people logged in already, and that's great to hear. So. Jason, haven't seen you in a while, man. It's been
almost 20 years since we've been together broadcasting like this. It's quite insane. So, thank you guys for joining us. We do have an exciting show planned ahead. We'll cover our news and do our topics, but we do have a very special guest speaker to come on tonight, last half of the show. We do. Definitely love you to stay tuned for that. It's going to be very interesting.
Much like Art Bell, we are going to have a guest. Yeah. A guest is going to take the second hour with us, and he's going to talk about paranormal, paranormal stuff, ghosts, ghost hunting, paranormal investigations, and he considers himself to be somewhat of an expert on North Carolina paranormal investigation. So we're looking forward to having him
very much
later on. And again, like I said, we were talking earlier. I think it's been last time I can remember doing a live show with Jason in person would have been 2004. So we're looking at a good 15 years down the road.
It's been a while. 15, 20, it's a long time.
Both of us looked a little better back then, but here we are. And with that said, looks like we're getting some people here. So hopefully everyone sees this. It looks like I've got some cheers and some checking in from Texas. Good to see you, Michael Sean. And Zach Watts, hello, how are you, my friend? And Stephen Jyer, hey, how are you, buddy? Beluga Studios was on time today and on time to see everything go kind of fall apart. So welcome to the club.
And shout out to Jamaica. Said he passed his tech. That's awesome.
Awesome. Good for you, man. Good for you. Good for you. Yeah, the video on the wonderful cigars you sent me should be up. I think it's either next Wednesday or the Wednesday after. I can't remember. But I've had a backlog of cheap cigar and now expensive cigar reviews because I hadn't posted them in so long. So I have all these old ones. But yours is coming, my friend. I do appreciate it. All right, let's move on to tonight's news. And we have a bunch of news, so let's go on to it. And hopefully after the first hour, we'll take a little break, and we'll have our guest on.
And the phones are open, guys. If you want to call in and comment, say hi, please do.
We'll be trying with Skype again. Of course, with bandwidth issues, it may work. It may not work great. We're going to find out the same way you are, right about the same time. So right on to the first bit of news, and that is really cool. We talked about it real briefly. Jason did a midweek review on this, but yet another company has talked about adding the idea of a space hotel, and I like that idea.
5 stars, I love it.
Right? Yeah. I hope they bring barf bags because I hear nausea and motion sickness are kind of common in outer space. But
and affordable too. They coined the phrase during the article. It was $9.5 million, I believe.
A bargain.
12 days though.
A bargain at half the price. Yeah. Frogman 430 saying, "Hey, from the Great Lakes, the frozen one that is -4. Holy cow, bro! Sounds lovely." Yeah. Anyway, let's take a look at some of these pictures. I hope they work. Because again, the whole screen was set up for a different resolution, and now we're operating a little bit lower. But there we go. There's a picture for you. Yeah.
So yeah, they're talking about 4 guests at a time. Get up there. They not quite sure how they're going to get you there. Maybe call an Uber or something. I don't know, but they're talking about 4 guests at a time, 2 crew members, and the goal, from what I was reading, is actually to sell these as like permanent residencies. They want to build this massive apartment in the sky.
An apartment complex in the sky.
They want to sell them individually, and they want everybody to go there and live.
What are you going to do though?
Beats the hell out of me.
It doesn't even look in that picture right there. I don't see any windows. I mean,
no. They've focused real hard on automation and making it easy to try to keep the cost down. But they say as it grows and the demand skyrockets, and they'll add on more to it. But the problem is there's 5 other companies that are trying to do the exact same thing.
Yeah, this is not a new idea. I think I've seen this a few times and I've got some other pictures here. I know in 2005 or so, there was another company, and here's another photograph or an artist rendition of what they're trying to build here. And this way they can add more modules and build onto this apartment complex in the sky, I guess. But yeah, the idea is not a new one. I think actually in 2005 there was a company that sent up one of these expandable domes and tested it, and it did work. So not a manned mission, but something they just wanted to see if it was something that would work out. So really cool. I'm just trying to figure out what you would do. I mean, I could definitely see, especially for the rich and famous, going up there, spending a 12-day. You said 12 days?
Yeah, 12 days.
12 days, probably enough time to get over the flight, get over the nausea, and have a few days to explore. Yeah, it looks like there are some small windows in there, so that's...
Apparently this has been going on for a while. I guess they said 7 people so far have actually considered themselves space tourists. It's cost them about $20 million, but they've been taken to the space station.
Yeah. Wasn't there some rock star that went up to the Russian Mir or something like that? Yeah, I remember that stuff. So that's really cool. I like it. Here's what I like about it. Capitalism works. So we have rich folks with propensity that want to go into outer space, and great. Now we're going to give them an opportunity to do that. That money funds other projects, so I'm all about that.
Yeah, if I had the money, I would be there in a split second.
Yeah, right. So
but 80,000 right now is all it takes to reserve your spot. So you drop it. It's fully refundable, they say.
Just 80,000.
Just 80 grand.
No big deal, right?
Spare laying around.
The Orbiter Hilton here. I wonder if Paris is included in that price. I don't know.
Maybe just the video.
This is PG, so we won't be showing that one. But what we got here going on here? We got some people chiming in. Let's see here. Oh man, Big A. Hello everyone, man. Glad to have you on board tonight. Butch 24 XR 152. Hello everyone. Eric, Woody, Jason. Yes. Rockin' Woody and Mad
Woody
Dog.
and Jason is one of the same.
That's right. That's right. Taylor, hello from Camp Lejeune, buddy. Are you down there for basic, or what are you doing down there in Camp Lejeune? Eric Code 503 saying he'll stay on the planet, although I would like to experiment with farting in space.
Self-propulsion.
I mean,
man.
if you're in a
Right
contained area, yeah, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, you'd actually
Get a little thrust going.
You'd have a little bit of thrust. That's horrible. That's great, but that's horrible. Yeah, man, hot boxing the entire orbiter. Boy, that'd be rough, man. All right, well, let's see. We got another picture of it here. These are some more artist rendition. Obviously, this thing hasn't really come around yet. So
They're saying by the 2021, late 2021 is when the expected completion is.
I hope
they'll
they do.
start reserving it in 2022.
I really hope they do. I hope they get it right, and I hope it comes down to like say $100 a night, because that's my budget area right there.
So
And
the hotel stay is about $100 a night, but the trip there is the 9.4 million.
just those damn fuel costs, you know. So here we have our little outer space hotel and casino. You can imagine someday in the distant future, the mafia will run that too. So we're looking forward to that. And yeah, that pretty well wraps up that. I mean, it's a great idea. I'm happy with it. Basic, I'm 4.5 years in. Sorry, man. Sorry, Mr. Taylor. Too much for me to pay without a hot tub. Man, a hot tub in outer space. Sounds
How
cool.
awesome would that be,
Yeah,
though?
these seem pretty cool, you know.
How
You
would
probably
that-
have to like zip yourself in though, because the water just kind of float away, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that would be difficult.
Still, I like it. Sounds good.
absolutely.
I'm down with that. If they build it, he will come or they will come. I'm still having some issues from last week over that one.
Well, with only 4 people, he or they, it's still relevant.
That's right. All right, so moving on from the Space Hotel news, we got lots of space news tonight, and this one is a little more promising, I think, and that would be another news article. And again, I apologize for these pictures being a little off center. I'll see if I can actually fix them because it was a cool photo. But yeah, let me move that up. There we go. Yeah, so another article in the news this week about companies thinking about mining the moon. Actually, quite a few. India has expressed some interest in mining the moon. Of course, the Russia and United States have been talking about it for years. But now we have the Chinese and the Japanese also involved. So whether these come to pass or not, it is, and then again, we talked about capitalism as far as exploration and how we have such an issue where we don't want to search the deep sea because what's the profit in it? But we do a lot of tech in outer space because, well, those inventions tend to reap rewards here on Earth and we get money out of those things. The inventions that we come up with tend to pay dividends. If they find something of value on the moon, then I have no doubt that value will cause a gold rush in outer space, don't you think?
There's a reason they're going up there to do it. It's honestly, I hate to say this, but it's not for purely scientific research. I bet you they're planning to get something out there that's going to make somebody millions.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. Again, with this little project here, this is obviously an artist rendition of what they would like to have. A little more realistic would be probably a robotic setup. And there's a lot of areas to pick from. Here's a picture of the moon with some of the many landing spots. I believe the moon is made of crystals. It could be. If it's cheese, cheese prices have kind of gone through the roof, so anything to bring it down.
Well, they've raised a lot of funding for this, something close to $45 million in private equity funding. So that's what tells me they're planning to turn a profit from this. But,
And it's another, what I think if we do go ahead and mine the moon, what we're looking at most likely is probably this, which is probably a manned mission for setup, but more likely we're looking at an automated process. We're going to bring some robots down there. Once we have determined what we're looking for and where to find it, we'll set that equipment up, let it do its thing, and just send flights in and out to pick that stuff up. If you think about what goes to the space station, a lot of those flights are automated. SpaceX flies all those supply ships, and several other companies are now doing that, flying supply ships, and those are all automated. There's no one on board.
Well, what was interesting, I was reading about the European Space Agency is getting involved with this. They're actually trying to make it like a jumping point, like a base, that they can go and use that as a platform for other planetary exploration. So they can fly to the moon, refuel, grab a bite to eat, use the bathroom, head on to Mars or something like that.
So are they thinking they're going to find a fuel source on the moon?
They're thinking they're going to be able to find oxygen and other resources to be able to facilitate making fuel. So they may have to carry their own materials. They may have to do all that, but they're of course they're not quite sure.
It's actually not a bad
That's
idea.
kind of what the thought process was from what I was reading.
That's actually not a bad idea. So it takes a massive amount of thrust to bring a single pound of anything off of Earth's surface and out into deep space. To leave the moon requires very little thrust. It has hardly any gravity at all.
You could fart and float.
That's right. Careful with that, right? So if we're looking at mining it or finding materials that we can use to resupply a ship on its way to, say, Mars or wherever, even deep space missions sometime after you and I are dust in the wind.
That's right.
Then that's actually not a bad idea. I hadn't heard of that. I hadn't really thought of that, but that sounds reasonable.
Yeah, no, I think it'll be a great thing if we can get pulled off. They were talking 2025 or 2025 before they were getting any kind of firm implants down, but.
Now here's another artist rendition of what a possible moon base might look like. Looks like we have storage tanks and pods. I would imagine anything that's actually going to have more than, say, 3 or 4 people on it is going to have to be something that has kind of a layered safety system. And this setup here looks like that would be the case.
Going to chime in from Michael Sean. He says he read it's hollow. I know Erik was talking last week. They said that when they landed on it, it rang like a bell. So it's very possible it could be hollow.
Yeah, it is possible. And another night we'll probably get deeper into that subject because there's a lot of, Richard Hoagland has just so much stuff he talks about with the moon, where he says a lot of those craters are actually crushed domes that were actually domed enclosures from alien civilizations that, and whether you take all that to heart or not, it is fascinating to hear his theories on that, some of the pictures that NASA put out back in the 60s. I've looked at the photographs. I say it's awfully hard for me to justify saying that they were a dome, but it's possible. Yeah, I think anything's possible,
Anything's possible.
So, you look at this artist rendition, that's a dome. So obviously the idea of a structure being dome-shaped for strength is sound.
Yeah.
So.
And you could tie this all back around to what we were talking about last week, and, ancient civilizations. We reached our level and we wiped ourselves out, and who's to say it didn't happen on that end too? Maybe it wasn't just planetary, maybe it was galactic.
Well, and so what we might be talking about is these aren't alien structures on the moon, they are human structures on the moon from a civilization that's already gone completely extinct,
possibly,
and built itself back up. Boy, that leads you down to some deep holes, doesn't it?
It sure does.
I like that. That's exactly the kind of stuff I like talking about right there. That'll just take you down the rabbit hole.
Red pill.
Man, right here on the Midnight Cafe, you getting it all the crazy right off the bat here. So, yeah, I like that.
Yeah, Area Code 503. Perhaps they'll build a large greenhouse to produce oxygen and food on the moon. From what China just did, it could be very possible.
Yeah, looking back to last week, that picture, not a lot of people really took that as a. I don't think people took that as such an event that it really was. Like, that was a serious moment in our human history.
Absolutely.
To be able to use Martian soil to get a seed to sprout on another planet is humongous. Even if we had to supply our own oxygen and our own CO2 and our own heat and our own water.
The foundation is there.
It's there. The soil is not as dead as one might think. So I think that was a huge deal. And it proves, yes, we could put these domes, like is in this picture here, and perhaps cultivate crops. And in as byproduct of these crops have oxygen. So a self-sustaining civilization on another planet. Or in this case, the moon. I'm down with that.
Yeah, me too.
Very cool. So, hey, Army, what's the best gauge of wire to hook up a CB? The bigger, the better. Gothic Knight, thanks. Should you ground on a battery or the frame? Why not both? That'd be my best guess. More grounds are better than none. And here is another picture, and this is, again, more like what I can see happening. They're not going to have astronauts down on the moon, or Mars for that matter, with a shovel and a pick working on mine. This is an automated machine here that's doing the work, loading up a rover, and that rover then takes it to probably a processing plant, and then that processing plant takes it back to Earth, or wherever. So I could see this happening. I'd like to think it happens in our lifetime, but I'm not hoping. I'm not hopeful. No. I think 50 years on from our first moonshot.
Maybe the space hotel is going to provide the living quarters for what little bit of manned involvement that needs.
That'd be cool. I'd be down with that.
Maybe they've all got this big plan going, and they're just letting it out piece at a time.
Yeah. The beauty of all this is that, again, I'm not trying to make any of this political by any means, but I am going to say that kind of the theme as I was looking at our news for this week tended to be that capitalism certainly gets the job done. Let's see what we got here. Zach saying, I wondered at times if electricity or other tech. Oh, yeah. Zach, I would bet you $1 on that one. Yeah. Zach is saying he wants to know if electricity or other tech that we use now has been used in the ancient past and was just lost to history. Definitely. Yeah. You could probably fill every library in the whole world with all the information that we have learned and then forgotten. All the technology that we have invented and then forgotten. So I have no doubt that past civilizations probably were far more advanced or as advanced as we are.
And I think they may have done it a different way.
Yeah.
It may not have been our same delivery system, but they definitely had something of the sort, I believe.
Yeah, I guarantee. So so back to the story at hand, and that is that it's like a battle of the billionaires this week. We have SpaceX, which we've talked about twice here now, but we also have Richard Branson's Virgin, and he's making his own aircraft or spacecraft to take. Again, this is customers. This isn't for really space exploration. This is customers getting a low Earth orbit space flight via Branson. So he's got some big news this week. And then we have Mr. Bezos, Mr. Most Expensive Divorce in the World fella. He's also working on his own spacecraft. So we have Elon Musk, Branson, and Bezos all playing with their billions and billions and billions of dollars, doing cool stuff like I wish I could do. So Let's start with Bezos, because he kind of flies under the radar a lot with his stuff. But here it is, Blue Origin. I thought it was Blue Horizon. Maybe I was... Yeah, I guess not, huh?
Mandela
effect. Yeah, that's exactly what's going on there. If you can chime in on that one, I'm pretty sure. Oh, man, this is crazy. Anyway, he had a great week. He successfully launched and landed one of his own craft, and he's announcing that they're getting closer, man. They're getting a lot closer. Here's the pod. They're going to be flying people, and there's Mr. Bezos himself, and he's getting ready. He doesn't, Musk likes to advertise all his awesomeness, but Bezos, this is kind of a side project for him. Very expensive side project, yes. Super expensive. So somebody's chiming in live. Yeah, we sure are.
Yeah, live.
So Bezos is doing that. Here's the man himself in front of his rocket. As you can see in that photograph, that is the rocket after it landed.
It looks a little tainted.
Looks a little burned up, a little singed, but that's okay because that means it can fly again.
Mm-hmm.
So there he is, showing off, and good for him. He deserves to be able to show that off. And go to this last picture, almost like this is like the right stuff here. I keep thinking of that movie, The Right Stuff, from long ago. He's standing out there, all got his aviator glasses on, looks like super tough in there. So here's before. You can see the paint's a little cleaner on there.
Yeah, it looks a little bit better.
And then we go back to after. Impressive. I give him all the credit in the world for that little trick.
I just find it amazing they're doing this stuff. Seriously, people just got all this money and they're like, let's go to space. And they just figure it out. I can't imagine the millions or billions it takes to build that stuff and figure that out, and who you have to hire, and there's a lot behind it. I'm very jealous.
Yeah, unlike most countries, let's look at China and to a large extent Russia. Their space program is pretty much 100% a copy of our space program. Mm-hmm. The Russians built the Buran or whatever it was. It was literally a space shuttle that they just stole the plans for and copied. Right?
Yep.
When it comes to the rest of their space program, what are they flying? They're flying the same rocket they've been flying all the way since the 60s.
Yep.
The Chinese, what did they do when they decided to go to space? They bought the copy of the Russian ship that they've been flying since the 60s, and that's what they put their first man on the moon with. So when it comes to innovation, there hasn't been a whole lot.
No.
There's been some nice deep space probes, and I'm not going to fault them for that. Some of the satellites they put in orbit are pretty fancy. But when it comes to rocket tech, if it wasn't for Blue Horizons or Blue Orbit, apparently, or whatever it's called. I swore it was New Horizons, but whatever. Maybe that's a Star Trek movie. And then we look at, SpaceX, and we look at Virgin Galactic or Virgin, whatever it's called. They probably changed the name on that over the last week. I don't know. Those ships, those guys are all coming at it from different approaches. Now, of course, Bezos and Elon Musk are both working on reusable landing rockets. But look at Virgin. Look at Branson's building a ship that literally takes off as a plane, flies up to 50,000 feet, and then takes off. Goes the extra distance with that. So, pretty amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing when you put it that way. That the private sector is actually driving the advancement on this.
There's the innovation.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see what we got here. Space Station 1991. Anyone watch that show? I sure do. I remember that one. That's an old one. That didn't last as long as Star Trek, but I do remember that one. Erik code 503 is chiming in. Yeah, like the orange juice batteries of Iraq. Certainly. Look, if kids can figure out how to take old copper batteries and make a voltage out of it, do you really think that somewhere back in time somebody didn't figure that trick out before?
Yeah, there's got to be.
Miss Woolbright's chiming in. Are we live? Yeah, we're live.
We think.
Well, we were anyway, unless this thing's crashed. We should get Elon Musk to call in, bro.
I would love that.
Hook us up.
You can get it. Let's do it.
Hook us up, please. He's heartless saying Top Gun. He does have that Top Gun look. He's got... That looks to me more like... Man, let me go back to the other picture. I believe what we're looking at here, That, my friends, is a members-only jacket, and that is way cooler than Top Gun, okay? I think he literally is going to bring back members-only jackets. So if you're old enough to remember them the first time, get them out of the closet. It's almost time. Area code 503. Got my FM pirate station streaming you on 100.7 here in Harlan County, Kentucky. 30 watts!
Area code, sweet. It's awesome.
There we go. Glad to have picked up another syndication. High five to that, my friend.
Hey, number 2.
That's right. We are now syndicated on 3 stations across this wild, wild America. And, of course, worldwide here on the Midnight Cafe. But that is freaking awesome. Thank you, Area Code. Feel free to use past shows, cut them up, do whatever you want to. We love that we're getting the word out and having a little fun here on the Midnight Cafe. Aviator sunglasses, man. If you don't rock aviator sunglasses, you're not even cool. I'm sorry. I've been wearing them since they were cool the first time, and I think this is the year they're coming back.
Gotta love it.
There we go. All right, so Bezos, on Bezos. Let's check out his competition there, Mr. Branson. Branson's got his Virgin ship, and here's this beautiful
This Branson guy is something phenomenal, though. Have you ever read into him, like the way he always seems so high strung and full of energy, and it's just amazing to me. I've followed him quite closely, just watch his articles and everything he writes, and I don't know, it's just amazing.
He seems like a living infomercial for some kind of power drink, doesn't he?
Yeah, absolutely.
And again, you think about it, if you're going to be a billionaire, if you are a self-made man like any of these guys are, you have to be made of something different than you and I are anyway. I mean, it's one thing to have initiative, but these guys have initiative, drive, and apparently a very high intellect to be able to do this stuff. So you can hate them on a personal level and still really admire them on a professional level. And in the case of all these guys, I feel a lot of admiration for it. So his design, definitely the most unique of the bunch. We have this 4-engined, dual cockpitted, crazy concoction you see in front of you here. And then you have the main unit, which is what actually takes you into low Earth orbit. Now, I don't know if y'all remember, but they did lose one of these and have a pilot fatality about 3 or 4 years ago. And I don't remember, I think initially they thought it might have been a pilot error, and then they thought, well, it could be a defective component. And it turned out that a manufacturer that was subcontracted to build the part used substandard components, and that's what caused a fatality. So, again, this happens in the quest for knowledge. You're going to break a few eggs, and unfortunately, this one cost somebody their life and certainly derailed his program for a while. But he's back on track. They had another successful flight here in the last couple of weeks. Here's a picture of the actual craft in motion. Quite a powerful little unit there. It's very unusual compared to all the other ships that I've ever seen.
That is very unusual. Such a weird profile when it flies.
It is. That's just wild. And of course, here's Crazy Branson himself with a spacesuit on. He's getting ready. I wonder if he's going to take a flight. I have to imagine like shareholders of the company, stuff like that. If you let's say they fly a few successful test flights, and he's like, "I'm going."
Yeah.
I wonder if they can stop him. I mean,
I wonder, it would have to be on the initial contract or the deal or something. I have a feeling he would have put that in his clause. Just from what I read about him, I imagine he would be up there with it.
I can think like Bezos, and soon probably Bezos' ex-wife, would not be allowed to fly or do anything dangerous like that. This guy probably is going to be the same situation. I also believe firmly, I've watched so much of Elon Musk, that when it's his turn, he's just going to sneak on board. Yeah. He's like literally just going to be like, what was the guy with the spruce goose? He's just going to fly on board and be like, all right, let's fire this thing up, flip a few switches, and the next thing you know, SpaceX is on its way to Mars, and Musk is in there, got his Tesla too, sitting in the back seat, like, we're going cruising on Mars. Yep. I'm sure there's a highway somewhere.
That's the way I'd do it. If they told me I would find a way on there.
Right? What's the point of creating all this stuff? And then you're just like, I'm not doing this. You can't go. I know you made something awesome, but it's not for you to play with. It's like, no.
Yeah,
No, I'm not doing that. Let's see what else we got here. 10-4, my friend. Good job, Erik Code. Seriously, please. I'm so happy to hear it. And 30 watts, too. That is officially the highest output of any station that we've ever broadcast on. We're running in like the 100 milliwatt range on our little pirate station, so good deal, man. Is that Stinger from Top Gun? Well, it might as well be. Howard Hughes, that's it. Thank you, Frogman. I appreciate that. Yes, Howard Hughes and the Spruce Goose. That was the dude that built that humongous, like 8-engine propeller
wooden plane right at the end of World War II, and he was going to be able to fly these huge cargo missions. Then the war ended, and the government was like, nah, we don't want this thing. It'll never fly. And then he puts it in the harbor in California and gives tours, and one day he just decides to lock the door and take it for a spin. And he did. Nowadays, that would get you put firmly in jail.
Yes.
Back then, you were just considered, well, that scrappy young man, I guess it's okay to, endanger the lives of all these people who just wanted a tour of your wooden boat. Hey, Josh Lynn, hey, good. Wow. How's Vermont, man? I hear it's cold up there right now. You guys getting snow, I think. I was watching Stikes and Hammer yesterday, and he was showing outside his window a very cold night. All right, so another one of Branson. He got another picture of him. I think he's outside of his little spaceship on this one here. There he is, poking his head out. Let me see if I can move that again. Sorry for the images being a little off kilter tonight, but it is what it is. We're working with some technical difficulties.
That's what happens when you travel, unfortunately.
That's right. We're on the road. This is amazing that this even works. So be very, very happy. There it is, a very strange ship, and it's so much like the space shuttle. On the way back in, it flies in like a plane, so that's kind of cool. 18 degrees at the moment. Well, heck, it's like almost swimming weather up there, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, we're talking Vermont, right?
No, thank you. Y'all can keep that.
Ah, yes, I do remember this. Jordan B. saying Alaskan airline mechanic took a plane for a spin not too long ago. I do remember that. I remember them scrambling jet fighters, and I bet you he had a great time, but also I bet you he's probably still in jail.
It was just a test flight. He just wanted to make sure it worked.
Like,
come on, cut the guy some credit.
Again, it's kind of like we get back to Bezos and all them and be like, all right, you get to work on these awesome planes all the time. Don't you ever want to just try one out,
Yeah, I mean, why wouldn't you?
If you're going to work on Porsches for a living, don't you want to take one for a spin?
That's right.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd think you'd want to have them tested out.
I get it.
Make sure it's sound. Oh, I'm telling you.
I get it. I totally get it.
Then take a plane out and everybody freaks out.
I mean, we was going to bring it back. Jamaica Dog, sorry, man, just found the feed. Yeah, I don't know. I'm glad you're with us on this feed. I think what's going to happen is y'all can kind of pile in, a few minutes before 7. And then I would definitely maybe refresh your browser or close your browser and try to find it again, because we had to do a false start. We had to restart the show. But we're here, and I'm glad you joined us, my man.
Yes, welcome back, Jamaican Dog.
The Virgin name cracks me up. With Virgin could be the rarest commodity in the universe these days. PG show, man. PG. This is shame. All right, so last one there is on to SpaceX, because I love SpaceX, man. I can't help it. That's 3 weeks in a row, and I'm not being sponsored by them. But if Elon Musk wants to call in, or maybe give me a Tesla, I'd be happy. Whatever you feel in your heart, big guy. Anyway, Elon had a bad week, which it happens in life. But this was kind of a real bummer, because it was like his beautiful ship, Spaceship One, I think it's called, or it might be called Starship One. They've changed the names a few times on this one, but this isn't a dream. This thing's actually been built. They've got the shell of it created and all the rest. Well, unfortunately, this week in high winds down in Texas, the dang nose cone fell off this thing and got pretty badly damaged. So that's going to set back Mr. Elon Musk for a while, unfortunately. I mean, that's a lot of money. Yeah. Now, I know this first flight probably would have been just a test run, but a test run or not, it's going to be delayed, I imagine. I don't know how you can fix that.
That's got to be frustrating. I mean,
yeah. Of all the things you think going wrong on a ship like that, to have just a dang malfunction where it knocks over and gets dented, that's bad news. So, yeah, so Musk has got some damage to his beautiful ship. Here it is on the pad. I believe that is not an artist rendition. I believe that is actually the ship, and it's not ready for flight. That's the top part of it, but that's what it's going to look like. A beautiful piece of machinery, if you ask me.
It's gorgeous. I look at that and I think of the old 50s sitcoms and Will Robinson and all that. That's almost exactly what it looks like.
Yeah, the chrome, like all those rocket ships from the old days, like they were all like that shape, and he's the coolest of the three. I'm sorry. If I was going to hang out with one of them, hang out. That would be the guy I would hang out with.
I kind of feel like he's pioneered it anyway. I mean, he was doing this stuff before it was even cool.
And that leads me back to this last picture, because I kind of feel like this is exactly what Elon Musk did when he heard about Branson and Bezos' successes this week. He just probably posted this on his page.
I saw that.
He's like, "Hey guys, what's up? Just a friendly reminder. Yeah, I did this. While you guys are still trying to figure out the ins and outs of flying in space, I put my own ship my own car,
Yep.
and my own little astronaut man into outer space, and I sent him off on a journey into Never Never Land. So you can suck it. It's pretty.
That's a cool kid right there.
Yeah.
You'll never be a part of the cool kids.
No, I'm nowhere near that cool. I couldn't throw a matchbox that high. So awesome, good guy. Glad to hear that. Although he's having a bad week with just him being him, he's going to have success.
That's right. That's right.
We got here Josh Levin saying 43 is Speedo weather in western Vermont. Woo boy.
PG show. You just keep that to yourself there.
Mark Wilbright saying the ship looks like the old one from Men in Space. Yeah, exactly. There was like a couple. There was a bunch of old black and white serials that had ships like Rocket Man in Space and stuff, and they were always that iconic design. And who would have thought that those artist renditions or those ideas of what the future might be were actually pretty darn close to correct?
Yeah.
That is the aerodynamics you need to travel in successfully out of the Earth's atmosphere, and certainly we've learned very randomly that a very thin, long ship is better than a fat, wide ship. Mm-hmm. So little meteorites and things like that don't smash into it and cause damage. So,
yeah.
Buck Rogers Model 2, yes sir. Flash or Buck Rogers, definitely.
Flash Gordon Drive, I love it.
Right on. So, yeah, millions of miles ahead of the rest of the guys. Yeah, I agree with that. And I don't, is that he got a head start? Because I kind of feel like Branson started before Elon or right at the same time, but they had different goals. Branson wanted to do a tourist thing, and Elon Musk wanted to get off planet just and go wherever, like literally wherever. It's just pretty much working for him.
Yeah, I guess it was probably more of a hobby thing and enthusiast for Musk more so than it was for Branson, as he was probably looking a way to make money out of it.
Yeah.
Which I can't blame him. You got to be able to fund that kind of thing, but still.
And this is the year. I did see, and I don't have a picture of it, but they do have an interview with the two guys who are going to be the two first people on a manned SpaceX flight coming up this year. It might even be as early as April if my memory is working, and it might not be. But the two guys are both former shuttle pilots. They're also friends for many, many years, and they will be the first two guys to fly the SpaceX, I think it's called the Dragon capsule, in an manned mission to the International Space Station.
That's got to be exciting.
They are. The inside of this ship is pretty cool. It's futuristic. Like, it looks like a 60s capsule, so it's still got the iconic Apollo whatever capsule or Mercury capsule. It looks very much like those. But inside, it's pretty much two jump seats, and instead of all the controls and dials and gauges that we're used to and our 60s and 70s pictures of spaceships, it's pretty much touchscreen technology. I mean, the whole thing is operated off of a trio of just 3 flat screen panels, and they can completely control the ship right from there.
You know how many times my iPhone messes up when I touch it? That scares me.
I hope they didn't buy those screens from the Chinese.
No kidding.
I would not want to be on that one.
Give me switches of buttons.
Yeah, that's like exactly what I was thinking when I looked at it. At first, I was like, wow, that's really cool. Mm-hmm. It reminded me of like a futuristic space show. The new Star Trek, everything's all, touch screens and everything. But then you think about, that's 3 screens, and if one of them goes down, can you operate it off the other 2? And what if all 3 go down? Where are the levers and buttons? Yeah. They're like, where's the backup?
And what if you push here and it thinks you pushed up here?
Yeah.
The abort button.
It's miscalibrated there. What the heck?
Self-destruct.
No! I wish them the best of luck, and I hope maybe that Tesla has... I don't know, man. I don't know. I hope they've got a backup plan. That's it.
Jamaica Dog. That's the same ship the Three Stooges took to Mars.
Just watch that. Three Stooges in Orbit was on a couple weeks ago. That's a great movie, man. Yep, that is the same ship. Perhaps Musk could launch satellites since Tesla is slumping. I think he is going to be doing that. I think that's going to be part of it. I think Tesla, give it time. I don't think Tesla's done for. I think it's definitely going through a rough patch, but I don't think Tesla's finished. I wouldn't buy one even if I could afford one yet, but they are very nice cars. I have seen and I have actually had a chance to work on one. Of course, it was just doing tires, but an incredible car, very well built car. A little dangerous to work on though, because there's a lot of energy in that car. Richard Branson was busy playing around with balloons. Yeah, wasn't he the guy that tried to balloon around the world?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Branson will have 22-inch spinners and fuzzy dice hanging. Yes, that is how you show a man up. When you're talking about the Battle of the Billionaires, and we definitely are here, I think that's exactly how you show a guy up. You're like, hey,
Like what Butch says. Can you imagine what the alien races are looking like when they watch a Tesla with a dummy drive by?
What do you do? I mean, what can you do? Someday, about a billion, trillion, billion, zillion miles away, somebody's going to come across that little Tesla, and they are definitely going to say, "What the?"
I just say, welcome, greetings from Destin, Florida.
Cool, man.
Glad you could make it.
Glad you could join us, man. I'd probably buy a Tesla satellite phone, but I won't buy the car. Interesting. Good evening, everyone. Saying hello from the Ouachita Mountains of Central Arkansas. Hello from Arkansas. Good to have you on board. We are getting ready to, we got about 5 or 10 more minutes, and then we're going to take a little quick break, and then we're going to have a live guest call in, and we're going to be talking about kind of the paranormal for the rest of the afternoon or evening.
This gentleman, we were very fortunate to have him get a hold of him. He's served as a chairman committee, I believe, or a paranormal investigative. I don't want to use the term society, but I guess a group. For here in North Carolina, he's very knowledgeable of North Carolina local folklore and supernatural and all this stuff, and we're very much looking forward to having him. He's sounded like he's done some paranormal investigations. He's, very, very fluent with all that stuff. So
I will say that I'm excited to have our first guest on the show, and if any of y'all have someone in mind that you would like us to have on the show in future episodes, please feel free to get in touch with us and let us know so we can get in touch with them and let them know. I have put out some feelers with some fellow YouTubers out there. Unfortunately, I have not heard back. Again, we're pretty small fry. I could go through my Facebook or my Farpoint Farms account and maybe get a little more traction. But I'm trying to make this its own separate thing. I think Farpoint Farms is a great channel, and I will continue to support it for many, many years to come. But I also want this show to kind of have its own life, and so I'm trying to make it a separate entity. But again, if you know anyone that wants to maybe come in and talk about a subject they feel comfortable talking about, we'd love to have them on. Right?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
So they said they should have made the dummy arm with a robot arm waving. Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yes.
I think in retrospect, I bet you Elon probably wishes he had done a little bit more with that. I'm pretty sure there was a big part of him behind the scenes, the part that didn't admit this, that figured that thing was going to blow up.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yes.
I mean, you're messing with that. There's got to be some part of you that's got to expect that to happen.
Yeah, that was the first shot, and it actually worked out. I think it was just off by a degree or two or something, a few thousand feet. I mean, it was damn near a perfect shot. So I think that's probably why he decided to go with that. But what a way to make a statement. I think, we're already looking at over a year, or right at a year on, we're still talking about that car in space. And I guarantee you 10 years from now, we'll still be talking about that as a milestone. And so as a showman, as somebody who wants to promote the brand, he nailed it, dude.
Absolutely.
He really did.
Absolutely.
All right, let's see here. I'm going to go on to some stuff with our main here, and I just gave that one away. But we'll just we'll just show this picture here, and again, I'm going to move this up here. So basically, tonight we are going to be talking about the paranormal, and you are welcome to join in. In fact, I've got time. We've got 5 minutes. If somebody wants to make a call,
call in.
Call in before we get our main host on the air, and we'd love to just chat for a little bit. You can talk about whatever you want to talk about, something we've already covered, something you want us to cover, or just to say hi, man. Skype is available. And let's see what we got here. Some people chime in already. I know a psychic, if you're interested. She has predicted earthquakes. Air code 503. I would definitely be interested in that. Please get us her information, or maybe drop her a line and let her know that we're interested in having her on.
Is she going to know that we're calling? Kidding.
That was good. That was actually good, man. Try Cliff Barackman from Finding Bigfoot. I would love to.
Absolutely.
Bigfoot. I actually have my own Bigfoot story. It's on the Farpoint Farms one. If you look up the video, there was something in the woods that night. But some night when we cover Bigfoot, I will be happy to tell you that story because it was a good one. Audio Slave wants to know, quick query, what do you think of ferrite beads on coax cables? Do they really make that much of a difference in regards to noise, etc.? They cause no harm whatsoever, and so it's a good idea to use them. If you're having interference, you want to try to rule out that interference any way you can, and ferrite, clamps around your cabling will definitely be one of the ways to help. So that's definitely something you could try. Danger, dummy, danger, yeah. Stephen Dyer saying he used them, seems to work fine. Yeah, again, especially in automobile applications, every little bit helps. You want to get rid of interference. Erik code 503 is going to hook us up. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, not only is he transmitting, but he's hooking us up, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So that does bring up we could close out with that if nobody wants to call. We kind of have our own personal experience with the paranormal and kind of what brought this home for me anyway, and Erik was a part of this investigation as well. The house I grew up in, I guess, had stories of being haunted. I don't know the full story, so I'm not going to dwell to tell it wrong. But growing up, you always felt like someone was on your shoulder, someone was there in front of you. I always hated being in the basement, but when you're a kid, you always haul butt up the basement stairs anyway. But, you know, there's been instances where friends would stay over, they get grabbed on by the shoulder, you see there's handprints on them and all that stuff. It was quite the experience. We never had any major issues with it, but, you know, we met up with Erik and kind of got curious, and, you know, we started setting up recorders and audio tape recorders and videos. And
this was right around the time that Night Shot became available.
That's right.
It was had one of the earliest Night Shot cameras on the market, probably. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I remember that.
And we caught audio, people arguing. I mean, the story behind the house was that the guy bought it, him and his wife. I believe he was a sheriff of that town, and he was moving his brother in, and he was finishing the basement for his brother. And, you know, the usual woes, he caught his brother and his wife in bed. Well, he killed them both. And, you know, this is where it gets convoluted. Not sure if it happened in the house or outside of the house, you know, whatever. But I remember specifically on the audio, we picked up two guys and a girl arguing. It was dead quiet overnight recording, as well as the orbs that were floating around.
Yeah.
But it was amazing.
Yeah.
Gave me shivers.
That place it was, most of the time you felt okay, but sometimes that place did give you the creeps, mm-hmm. especially in that back area where his room was.
Yep.
Yeah, I do remember that. That was, yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty nuts. So we've got firsthand experience on the actual paranormal investigations, trying to figure out what's there. And, you know, this has always been a huge fascination for me. I love this subject. I love talking about it.
Definitely. Yeah, this will be the first of many shows where we cover that stuff. We're getting a couple people chiming in. I have to go. I'll be back in 5 to 10 minutes. Beluga Studios, thank you for chiming in. I hope to see you again here in a few minutes. And Brentwood Apartments, I don't remember that one there.
I don't either.
Tell you what, it is 7:50. We are going to go ahead and take our little halfway break. And when we come back, we will have our guest, and we will get a whole lot deeper into the paranormal. I have some stories to share. Jason probably has one or two more. And, yeah, it's kind of a cool subject, something we will definitely make many, many episodes about.
Absolutely.
I hope you'll stick around, okay? Let's cut to some music. Today, I think it's time for another one of Marky Shaw's. Let's see here. I don't know. Did we play Old Man?
I can't remember what you played last
I think I'm going to go with Old Man. This is another one that I think if you close your eyes and listen, you'll hear a little bit of every man in this. And Marky, if you're out there tonight, as always, I appreciate you letting us use your music. If you're out there and you would like us to use your music in future shows, please contact either myself or Rockin' Woody, and we'd be happy to do so. With that, let's go to the music.
So hard every day, so many obstacles in your way. You jump through hoops just to get paid. Losing your mind is the price you pay. Work so hard every day, so many obstacles in your way. You jump through hoops just to get paid. Losing your mind is the price you pay. Time coming, what a sight to see. An old man trying to get his groove back. He ain't gonna take no crap. Put on your business suit, another dollar in your pocket. This old man's gonna break his back. He ain't gonna take no crap. Put food on a table and pay the telephone bill. Keep bringing home that bacon. Don't waste that money you've been making. Put on your business suit, another dollar in your pocket. This old man's gonna break his back. He ain't gonna take no crap. Work so hard every day, so many obstacles in your way. You jump through hoops just to get paid. Losing your mind is the price you pay. tell you that I've been working so hard, one foot in front, the other. The lessons I learned from my mother and father. Oh Lord, can you hear me? Oh Lord, can you hear me? Oh Lord, can you hear me? Oh Lord, can you hear me pray? Just to get paid, losing your mind is the price you pay.
All right, we're back. Sorry if we blew out anybody's eardrums with that, but this is it's a work in progress.
That's how we like our music. We like to rock it.
Yeah, really loud. That one. I think
that's how we roll.
I was already 3/4 deaf. Now I'm 4/5, but that's all right. Anyway, we are back. You've got Mad Dog and Rockin' Woody live together.
That's right.
For the first time in many, many years, probably 15 years. Here, live on 1670 and on the Midnight Cafe and on 100.7.
Yeah, FM.
It's awesome. Rocking 30 watts out there, so we are syndicated. Something I failed to mention at the beginning of the show is that this show is free to air. That means if you want to take this show, download it, and rebroadcast it, you are welcome to do so. And it is time.
There we go.
Are you there, my friend?
Download it.
Yes.
So,
Are you there, Waverly?
you're my friend.
Yeah, hey, how y'all doing?
You might want to, if you can do us a favor, just turn down your audio in the background. It'll kind of bleed through.
I just shut it off.
Perfect.
Let me see if I can get him quieter.
Yeah, he's a little. So you doing all right tonight, Waverly?
Yeah, doing good.
So I'm sorry. Apparently we did have a technical difficulty with the feed. I posted a link that's not the right link than the one that you were at. Didn't get to see the live stream, so you didn't get to hear the build up we gave you. You know, we just told everybody kind of the brief history that you told me about your involvement with the groups in paranormal investigations, and you had a history of stories, and really just kind of want to turn it over to you and kind of talk about whatever it is that you'd like to embrace us with.
Well, like I told you before, I had some experience with paranormal investigating, and just thought it might be something you guys might be interested in.
Absolutely.
If there's any Q&A or whatever, I probably have more questions than answers myself after having done it. It's a strange feeling when you encounter that sort of stuff. And it never gets old. I don't think you ever get fully used to it. Sometimes it's startling.
What's your most memorable investigation? You want to share a little bit about that with us?
Sure. To be quite honest, I would say they all. There's been plenty of times when you go. It's not all like TV. You'll go and sit in a dark room for hours on end, running tape, and maybe nothing happens, or little subtle things happen. But have had quite a few that I would say are memorable in their own way as far as odd things occurring. One of the most strange ones, there's a historic site just outside of Durham called Stagville Plantation.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not widely publicized about the haunting phenomena. We did some events for them around Halloween, and they had a big turnout, but change of hands out there, board of directors, and they don't really like to be known as haunted. So that's kind of a sad thing because it draws people to a site, and while you're there, you're going to get educated on the site. So. We always thought it was, had its, benefits that way. That place was always one of my favorites. Very active location, and I've had things happen out there just in broad daylight. Um, but we were up in the main house. Probably it was, late at night. I don't know, probably about 1 a.m. And there's a kind of an attic space up there, and a real small window in the far end of that space, and looked out over to the grounds. You could see a little bit of light coming in. It was a very dark space, and all of a sudden it got darker.
Oh wow!
There was a black mist or cloud that formed in the room, for lack of a better description. I mean, that's exactly really what we saw. It just formed in the room and turned and came towards us and dissipated.
Did you feel threatened at all, or did you get that feeling of fear? Or were you at ease, or what was that like?
No, it wasn't so much threatened. It is a little bit of a fear in most of it, but
that's, I think, pretty natural, I would imagine. Yeah.
Climate thing, fight or flight. You're just kind of like, it takes a minute, I think, lots of times for your mind to really kick in and realize what's going on, because it's not normal. It's not what you're used to. It's not what you expect, even though you go out there looking for these things. It's not our day to day. And when all of a sudden, here's this black amorphous cloud, you're kind of like, whoa, what's going on? And then your mind finally kicks in. About that time, it's gone.
Yeah.
Because these things usually are very, very quick. As far as I've seldom had where something seemed to stick around very long.
Yeah, there's something that I've wanted to talk about, and maybe I'd love to get your opinion on this, because so I'm big into the paranormal as well. I love the ideas of both hauntings, poltergeists, demonic possessions. I mean, there's so many different philosophies as what's going on. And I think I've gotten to the point in my life where I almost wonder, more than is it a ghost, is what I'm actually looking at. Am I looking at maybe an imprint? Am I looking at something, some kind of, what am I looking to say here? That, like a thought that gets stuck in time, like a feeling that gets stuck in time and replays itself.
The best way I've heard that theory described is like an audio cassette tape records magnetic energy through music. So, are we looking at something that was recorded by the magnetic waves in the air and just on a loop playback?
Yeah.
Is that kind of what you're talking about?
Yeah, exactly. So are we seeing something that's an entity that has a mind of its own, that has an intelligence, or are we looking at maybe a recording that exists on a plane that we just don't understand yet, something that happened in the past, or perhaps even happened in another dimension, and we're just being somehow witnessing that? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I believe there's a couple different layers to that, from an answer standpoint. You get what you're talking about. Has been referred to as a psychic recording or a residual.
Okay.
With something that's just made an imprint on the environment or that location, or certain circumstance all come together, and so you can hear it or see it or experience it. Then you get what's called an interactive, which is what largely is believed to be some sort of consciousness.
Have you ever had an experience like that, where you've had a spirit or an entity or a cloud, whatever, that has been interactive with you?
Yes.
I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, definitely.
And oddly enough, some of the stranger experiences I've had have been not when we were doing an investigation, when I was even outside of the group, even in my day-to-day work. I was working in a house not far from Raleigh, and not even a really old house. The house was probably built in the early 90s maybe. And I was in the house, kept feeling there's a thing that's widely known in these circles. It's referred to as spiderweb sensation.
Okay.
Now, I never had that happen before. And what spiderweb sensation is describing is literally like when when you walk into a spiderweb and you feel that weird kind of, it's a very subtle, whatever, sticky, whatever stimuli. Um, that's supposedly like something reaching, like a touch. Now I've known people that have been touched, pinched, grabbed, that sort of thing. But usually it's more subtle, and usually I would say spiderweb sensation would be more common, at least in my experience with the circles that I've run with people. It had never happened to me before.
Okay.
And was doing work in a house and kept feeling this spiderweb sensation on my arm. And I was very subtly asking a coworker, hey, you feel anything odd about this? And trying not to, put all my cards on the table, make them think that I'm completely lost my mind. And we had some problems where the doors in the house kept slamming. Well, I'm trying to rationalize in my mind that, we've got, maybe there's a draft, cross ventilation, because it was an August day. It was very hot. There was no power in the house.
It's human nature to try to explain stuff like this away. Yeah.
Exactly. So we had a door on the back end of the house open, and there was one to the garage that was open. So I'm thinking, but there was no ventilation. We were sweating to death. So a little bit later, I was the only one in the house, and the door slams again. And at that point, I left the door shut. And then I started to have the spiderweb sensations on my arm again. Well, I went into another room to do some work, and it started up touching me again. And I finally, because there was no coworkers there to think that I was insane, I spoke out loud and said, hey, it doesn't bother me if you want to touch me. And at that point, the Venetian blinds on the windows just kind of moved to the left and swung out in the air a little bit and held there for about a split second, and then gently placed back by themselves. And it was, it was like, wow, that's even for a seasoned investigator, that's, it was pretty impressive.
That's directly interacting with you. That's directly interacting with the environment and you. That's a pretty rare bird there. We're getting some comments here. Psycho for You is saying sometimes it's just a replay of something, and sometimes it has an intelligence behind it, I think. And again, back to that, I know if we're talking about an intelligence, I worry and I wonder, are we looking at something demonic? Are we looking at something that's just, again, an intelligence that got stuck in time? Or are we looking at just the image of someone who passed away? I worry, obviously, about demonic stuff. I know I spoke with a guy years ago on another show I used to do. Well, actually, it was 1670. It was just back on our pirate radio days that did. He specialized in demonic hauntings, and man, he scared the hell out of me. I mean, I'm gonna be honest, and it kind of made me, ghost hunting was kind of popular in its heyday there. They had become popular through Sci-Fi's show, and it probably was somewhere near its peak at that point where there were a lot of organizations who were doing it. And talking with this guy and hearing some of the stories that he had personally made me not really want to do that because, sometimes you're messing with something that might be something you shouldn't be messing with, it almost seemed like. But have you ever come across what you would consider to be perhaps evil or demonic type hauntings?
Well, let me preface with this whole thing. I don't want to say it's not common because it's more common than you think as far as like hauntings in general. But of that, I would say the really negative side of it, I don't know anybody personally that's experienced that.
Okay.
And I used to know a lot of people, and we had a pretty good group at the time, and we've been to different events and done a little bit of public speaking. I think that the negative side of it is a little less common, definitely more so than TV would let on. Casper is not as exciting as.
Ain't that the truth?
But I will say this. I believe it personally to all be energies. You got good and bad.
Yeah.
Just like like now here and now we have good people, bad people, ornery people, pleasant people. I have been to a location that I don't like.
Yeah.
I prefer not to go back there. Nobody I know has had anything really bad happen to them, but it has a very bad feeling about it. And without sounding completely kooky, that's the best way you can describe it.
No.
It's just not the place.
Yeah, I get that completely.
I totally get it. A bad vibe, you know, people call it gut instinct, but people can call it whatever they want to. But a bad vibe, or if your gut tells you, hey, man, this is not right.
You need to listen.
Listen to it. You'll live longer, I promise. Cat Lovers chiming in, says here, hi guys, saw you were live and listened to last week's show. Great, I'm glad to see you back, Cat Lover. Husband found the Midnight Cafe. Glad to be in on the ground floor. That's right, when we're big and famous, you can say, I got a shout out from those guys one night.
That's right.
Stephen Dreyer is also chiming in. My in-laws live in a house built in 1913, and at least 2 or 3 times a week they hear loud footsteps walking across the floor in an upstairs bedroom. Been hearing it for 35 years plus. What's your take on that? Do you think that's a residual, or you think that might be some current ghost stomping around up there?
I would say just with no more knowledge on the subject of that particular haunt, that would sound like a residual, seeing as it's repeating. But then again, you know, I like to think of myself as a creature of habit, so people do have patterns.
Mm-hmm.
I had a friend that had a house, not an old house, and they would hear footsteps at the same time every night.
Yeah.
Every night at the same time. And so finally he's like, why don't you bring some of the group out, you know, and run an investigation. We weren't able to get anything on the investigation, but I have been there and heard those footsteps. And then they did have some strange occurrences on a few occasions that were more what you might consider to be interactive. Sometimes there's kind of a gray line between that. But yeah, you may have a residual.
Let me ask you, Waverly, now, if there's a residual and there's an interactive, what do you think the difference is as far as the cause? Like, what causes a residual haunting versus a conscious being? Like, do you think it's the way that the death happened, the energy of it? What's your take on that?
Well, it could be any of that. I think sometimes with residuals, as well as with hauntings, and I'll use the term haunting as more of an interactive, I think it's a combination of maybe how things happen, emotions, and some even believe that the structure, not so much the land, but also the structure. There at one time were people talking up about stone structures might be more of a catalyst for these sort of things. I don't know if maybe quartz and
tracks, yeah.
Yeah, that would make sense.
But yeah, it's really, really hard to say. Like I said, all the times I've investigated, I end up with a lot more questions myself than answers. But yeah, I think you could I think there's a third category too. This is just my personal opinion, and a lot of people think it's strange. But I think there's a third category where that veil of time, for whatever reason, maybe relative to the location, also, again, structure, materials, or what have you.
Yeah.
The veil of time might be very thin, and it's like you're looking at the past, just a brief little dusty glint of the past as it's occurring.
I'm actually glad you brought that up. I've done a little research into that angle on this, because there's people, they call it time slips, where people have turned around and all of a sudden they're not where they were. They're 100 years in the past, or they're 100 years in the future, and it may last just a second or maybe 5 or 6 seconds. And I'm going to share a story that I've never shared before, but I had a moment like that in the very weirdest place that you can think of. I was in a PetSmart dropping off a pet before work, and I put the animal on the counter and had a quick conversation. And when it was over with and I agreed I'll come back at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock to pick this animal up, I turned around, and for about what felt like longer, but it was probably more than a second or two, I turned around, and instead of this lit up, hustling, bustling little store, I saw the rafters empty. I saw debris everywhere. I saw the roof had caved in, and it was dark and it was musty. And then I blinked, and it was back to reality. It was back to exactly where I had been.
You never even shared that with me before.
No.
I didn't realize you had that.
It was a very strange occurrence, and from that point on, I'm going to say this was back in 2005 or 6 maybe, but I went home and started doing some researching on that, and I found there were others who had experienced stuff like that through the years, some airline pilots who had looked down on airfields and seen unfamiliar planes. There's a variety of these short stories about that, but I kind of wonder if maybe that isn't exactly what you just said there, that if perhaps these people, these residual hauntings, or these hauntings where somebody turns around and sees a person walking across in period clothing, that what they're seeing is quite literally another time, and it's just a weakness between that dimension of time.
I agree. Yeah, what you said, there's definitely there's been some case studies where they don't quite fit the bill of a normal haunt for whatever reason. It doesn't quite seem like your standard residual. I mean, here there's one, and you know, you have to take it for what it's worth. It has to be I think a lot of the stuff has to be your experiences, because nowadays, you know, video camera, even if you were able to get good evidence, you know, people are going to, you know, critique that and say it's been edited or this, that, and the other.
It's true. It's amazing you can't trust anything you see anymore. And it's sad. You know, I want to give every photograph or every video the benefit of the doubt, but the truth is you can fake anything, and you don't need to be a professional to do it anymore. So that really does put a crimper on finding the real truth. And that's such a bummer that it's so prevalent that people do make fakes. But
yeah, and it really harms the science behind it, trying to learn about this sort of stuff. But there was one known circumstance, I believe it was Gettysburg, where these people went down an elevator in a building, and when the doors open on the elevator, there's a Civil War era, you know, battlefield operating room, or tent rather, where this guy is operating on someone, and he appeared to look at them and motioned for them to come help. Now, is that completely residual, and it just so happened that they were there and they saw it and he wasn't even motioning at them? Or was he truly motioning at them? And if he was, then that just seems really odd to be a haunt, a ghost type thing, where all of this is going on. It seems more of like something with a time issue.
Yeah, like they slipped into his time and he saw them and thought they were there to help and was like, "Here, come here, please, I need your help."
Well, it then makes you wonder if maybe a fraction of the missing persons cases that we come across every year are actually people who take that step and enter that other timeline.
That brings up a whole nother crossroad.
We'll have to cover that another night. That might tie into that missing 411 missing people stuff there. I've just got two people who have chimed in with little stories of their own. I'll read them off to you, and you can feel free to comment on them. Zach Watts is saying that he worked as a maintenance man in a 60-year-old school, and that he thought he heard a ghost or a residual of a past maintenance man, footsteps and jangling keys in the hallway, when he knew he was the only one there that day. So that's definitely, boy, that'll get the hair on your back standing up there. And Beluga Studios
Start to run.
Yeah, right. Time to go home early. Beluga Studios says, "Wow, I am lucky. My house was built in 1925 by my great-grandparents, and at least one person has died in my room, and I've never had an experience anything. And my bed is 100 years old." Wow. So, yeah, I think Beluga, and I'll answer this one, and you can maybe chime in on the other story there, that I don't know that the age of a house or the fact that somebody died in a house probably doesn't necessarily have a lot to do with these situations. I think hauntings, remember, before that house there may have been another house. So that house that's built in the 90s that has something going on sits on land that may have been farmland, and maybe a farmhand was crushed by a piece of machinery or trampled by a horse, or who knows. So I don't know that. I don't know. I think, you know, again, we look at cemeteries as haunted places, and a lot of times they do tend to have activity, but that doesn't necessarily, because there's dead people buried there, doesn't necessarily mean that that's where the action's going to be at. I don't know that there's any rhyme or reason to that. What's your thoughts on that, sir?
Yeah, I would say the jury's still out on a lot of that. Is like what factors, there's probably so many different factors that can contribute to a residual or haunting. I've lived in a house where somebody died in, and it was definitely haunted. It was very active. I currently, and this is not like I don't go seek these things out. I prefer to live and sleep where there isn't anything like that.
Yeah.
I like to go investigate it and then come back home and go to bed and live in my own little imagination that it doesn't exist where I stay. The house that I currently stay in, somebody died here, but we don't really think there's anything going on. I've had some things occur out of the corner of my eye, and I can't quite determine if it's a optical illusion yet, but nothing crazy. So yeah, I don't know. It's strange. You know, house right next door could have all kinds of crazy things going on and nothing happens, and then right down the street seems to be a normal house, normal property, and could be haunted. So.
And I'm wondering again if we go to deaths in households, because I've lived in houses where people have died in them and not had any issues, and I've lived in houses where people have died in them and I have had some issues. I think perhaps there might be something to do with, and you can chime in on this too, Jason, but I think it might have something to do with the way they died. Was it a violent or unexpected death, or was it a slow process where we kind of made peace with God and with our family, and we knew that our time was coming? I'd imagine if a person passes away at peace, then there's probably not much of a reason to stick around. Yeah. But perhaps if it's a sudden or unexpected or certainly a violent death, that might maybe lean us more towards that entity or that memory sticking around in the house.
And yeah, I would completely agree with that. I mean, pretty much every theory seems to be based around the energy of either the haunting itself or the event that happened, or of the building. So, would you agree with that, Waverly?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, that's one of the more common takes, that if there was a violent or sudden death, that it might trigger these sort of things. But just as easily you can have a violent or sudden death, and I guess they go where they're supposed to. I don't know.
Yeah.
Why are they even here? I don't know. But yeah, that's one of the more common accepted takes on that.
I want to take a moment just to point this out. We have one of the users has just popped in here. One of the listeners is Keith Hamilton, and he's asking to maybe chime in. And I want Keith Hamilton to know that I have a Rangemaster, which he produces, and that is where Pirate Radio started all this mess. So 20 years ago, give or take, a Hamilton Rangemaster on 1670 got this whole mess started, and that's very much the reason why we're here. So Keith, what an interesting guest to have in the mix tonight.
Absolutely, I love it.
Want to throw a shout out to you, and if anyone out there is interested in Pirate Radio, and I use Pirate, I always say Pirate, but let me do my quotes there. There we go, Pirate, because it is 100% FCC legal if you set it up right. But Keith Hamilton's Rangemaster is probably one of the best products out there for that. So back to our show. That was the free shout out for Keith there. I appreciate it, man. Now, Jason, you have any?
No, I think we're trying to get some call-ins, Waverly. I don't know if you mind talking to some folks here. The way we have it set up, just so you know, if we get a call in, we kind of have to put you on hold for just a second and answer that call, then blip back over to you, so you didn't get cut off, and don't hang up, think that we lost you or something.
Yeah, it can be a bit of a trick, but it does work. But I'm really enjoying the conversation.
Absolutely.
This is stuff that definitely interests me. And another topic, and not really related maybe directly with ghosts and paranormal, but something that always has fascinated and as I grow older has started to worry me, is the use of Ouija boards. And it's like when I was a kid, I got a Ouija board and we used it a few times. And then I had an experience where I went to a friend's house and his parents were very, 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 very much into the occult. Probably dangerously so. And again, this is a story I probably have never told, but they had some artifacts that were, as an adult, you realize how unusual they were and how probably things you probably shouldn't play with. They were into the dark side of the occult, I believe. And his mother saw us playing with one of these books and said, "You really want to know how to talk to spirits? Let's set this up and we'll do it." And so, God, it must have been midnight or later. We set up in a very strange room. These were very eccentric people, but I wish I could share a picture with you, but I'll have to use the mind's eye on this one. But the room was yellow and purple checkered, and it had some very strange Indian and Easter Island artifacts in it. And she set up a Ouija board, not a board like you buy at the store, but we made a Ouija board out of it. And then she showed us how they used it, and we were able to contact some spirits. And I've always looked back at that moment and thought, what the hell was I doing? I mean, what am I playing with here? As a child, it's a toy, it's fun, it's a game, but as an adult, you read into the possibility of letting unwanted spirits into your life and bad spirits into your life, and I don't know, I try to keep an open eye on things like that, but I do worry about that. Looks like we do have a call coming in, so I'll let you think about that for a second. Maybe not. Are you still there, Waverly?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Thought we had a call.
It said we had 4 notifications.
Let me see here.
Yeah, and it could be a topic for another show, but as what Eric's talking about, unwanted spirits and everything, I've got some experience and stories on that myself. It would take us way off kilter for tonight, but I would definitely love to do another show about that, because in my opinion, that's a whole nother realm. That's beyond supernatural. That's
scary.
After forces, and very scary. Very
scary. Really is. But have you ever, and without going too deep into it, have you ever run across something like that where you just felt like that's a bad thing, or do you think maybe it's overhyped? What's your opinion on that?
It's been my opinion personally, as well as the people that I used to work with in these groups. We did not use spirit boards, Ouija. Maybe that was more superstition, but yeah, we wouldn't touch that sort of thing. It was just more of just to be on the safe side.
Yeah.
However, I will add that I studied dowsing under a master dowser.
Wow. Okay.
And,
wow.
I do use dowsing rods on occasion, and always had them in my backpack when we were on investigations. And we have had people that have pulled out dowsing utensils.
Waverly, I hate to interrupt you right there, buddy. We do have someone calling in right now, so you just hold that thought.
Let's give it a shot.
Sure thing.
Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hey, Keith.
Yeah. Good to hear from you, Keith. Give me a second here to see if I can add back Waverly.
Yep, we'll get him switched back.
Uh-oh.
Oh.
What happened?
Should be on.
There you no? Where is he? Huh.
Maybe type his name.
There it is.
Right there.
Give us 1 second. And
sure.
We're not quite high tech yet.
Yeah.
We have come a long way since the original Range Master, but we know.
Yeah. While we're waiting on that, I did want to cycle for you saying Ouija boards are bad juju. I agree 100%. Cat Lover says her husband has a story of using a Ouija board when he was in his teens. They contacted somebody and it freaked them all out. Never used it again. That's pretty much where I'm at in life. And Beluga Studio says if he wants to make contacts, he just uses his CB. So.
Yeah, messing with Satan can be bad.
Yeah, I agree. And that's kind of where I go back to my own experience with that family so many years ago. Not being a child and not really realizing what I was playing with makes you feel like maybe that was a really bad idea. So why won't it?
Click on.
Not on this call, it says. 2 or 3 in the call. I don't know. If Waverly wants to try to call back in, we'll try to get it set up again. I'm sorry that we're having a little bit of issues tonight, but it says it's unavailable. I'm not sure what that means. Well, anyway, tell us all about the Hamilton Rangemaster, because I'm a big user myself. And
cool. Well, it was like a lot of stories start out, and many years ago, back in the old days, I wanted to do what you guys are doing. And there was nothing out there to do it with. The only thing out there was crummy stuff, stuff that sounded like a cheap walkie-talkie. And I looked and couldn't find a thing. So I built one. Built a high-quality AM transmitter that you could actually do a radio station with. and just started selling them because it wasn't available. And I wanted to help people do what you guys are doing. To help schools and people that wanted to have their own station. Do just what you guys are doing, and just did it for many years, and still doing it.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Yeah, I enjoy it. Yeah, I had my own station for years, and when I was a kid, there was just not much out there that had the high fidelity sound. That you could have a nice station, and with the right audio equipment, the transmitters today can sound actually better than a full power station.
And Waverly, have you come back? I think I hear you.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, okay, so great. We got everybody. All right, good. Hey, look at that. Sometimes miracles do happen. Well, we've been kind of sidetracked talking about pirate radio in general, and that's what this show got its start. And I think, and I don't know, maybe today I think probably a lot of folks are probably just bypassing pirate radio and doing blogs and stuff like we're doing here on YouTube
and all that stuff.
But I'll be honest with you, there is a special, I don't know, maybe you'll agree with this. There's something special about transmitting over the air.
It really is.
I mean, it's just this. You're reaching out, and here I can look right here at my stats and say, oh, we got 24 people on here, and and I know the names of most of y'all. We chat. Yeah, that's kind of cool in its own way, no doubt. But there's also something cool to be said about throwing your voice out into the wind and just wondering if somebody's listening.
Who's listening on 100.7 FM?
Yeah, exactly. Right now, somebody out there is listening on a 30-watt station in Arkansas, and they're like, who the heck are these guys? And who are they talking to, and what's going on? And I love it, man. So
yeah, there's kind of a mystery about that.
Yeah, it's the voice in the wind. That's what I've always. And I don't know if you ever listened to the first little promo we put together for the station, but that's that wind noise in the background. That's just, to me, it's the way I've always thought of our shows when we did those shows so many years ago. God, we had so much fun.
And we didn't know if anybody was listening. There may not have been, but you never know. There may have been one.
Yeah.
It's great to think about.
Anyway, back to it. What do you guys want to talk about? You got the floor, I'd say.
Well, Jason, you had mentioned you were talking about the paranormal and all that, and when I was in high school, and we had gotten interested in North Carolina mysteries, and we took a few trips out to the Devil's Tramping Ground area.
That's right, I remember.
And yeah. And I don't know, you guys might have already talked about it tonight.
We haven't, actually. It's not come up yet.
Okay. But there were some actually some stuff that, we went out there a few times, and actually, we kind of stopped going out there because it seemed like the trips got weirder and weirder. And the one trip that we went out there, I don't know if people are familiar with the Devil's Tramping Ground, but if you get a book about North Carolina mysteries, it'll always have the story of the Devil's Tramping Ground. And the stories are something about the devil dancing in a circle out in the middle of the woods, that kind of thing. But if you actually go out there, it's out. I'm in Raleigh, and it's it's west of Siler City, west of me, about 150 miles, I don't know. But it's off a country road. It's this area where nothing grows. And, maybe it's just because there's a lot of salt in the earth or something. But you drive out there, and it's actually marked by the state as the Devil's Tramping Ground. There's a sign there. And a lot of people just go there and camp and drink beer and stuff, And so, we've taken some trips, and the trips just got weirder and weirder. And the most unusual one was we went out there, and the first thing is we met a local guy, just and this is my memories. It was a long time ago, but a local guy. We met a local guy, and one thing I remember is this guy had just gotten out of prison. So that was our first red flag. We should have
let me hold the dollar.
But anyway, this guy said, I know of this real cool place, and we really need to go. and we need to check this place out. So, oh yeah, we'll go, no problem. So we pile in his car, and we go driving for just a few minutes. And we go driving down this dirt road, and it had rained recently, and the mud just got deeper and deeper and deeper. And finally, he was stuck, and he said, "Well, we're gonna have to walk." And we start walking, and we walked for quite a long time. And we kind of stayed to the woods because the mud was pretty deep.
At any point in this, did you start thinking of this is how horror movies start?
Yeah, right.
No, we were like 18 and 19. We were into the adventure, We were having fun.
Fair enough.
And so we get to this house, and we enter into it. And we get to this house, and it's pretty much intact. I think I noticed that maybe one part of the roof was a little bit kind of dropped in, and we get to this house, and you get something in the middle of nowhere, and we go inside, and everything is just fully intact. Like someone just left. But the odd thing is everything was ancient. I mean, like you go into the medicine cabinet, it was medicines from like 80 years ago.
Oh,
I mean,
wow.
the dates on everything was from like the late 1800s.
Wow, they just like
the
walked out and it got
books.
forgotten about, huh?
Yeah. Everybody just took off like 80 years ago, and it was just totally forgotten. And so it was just totally cool going through the medicine cabinets, look at the old medicines, and we grabbed an armful of books, each of us, thinking we're going to grab these, have these great old books, and just looking through the whole place. But it was very spooky. And on the way back, the weird thing that I remember, there were the eyes following us. If you look at it in the forest, we kind of grouped together in a single line very tightly, because there were these eyes kind of following us out in the forest, and we were just terrified, and we kind of got rid of the books little by little because it was a long walk. And at the end of the walk, we each wound up with only one book, which was just horrible because they were old books, but they were so heavy we just couldn't carry them back. And so we finally got to the guy's car. He drove us back. And, the whole night was just, tiring, kind of terrifying with everything in the woods and everything. But the weirdest thing is we tried to go back the next day, and it wasn't far. It was just down the road. And we thought we found the same road, and we looked for that house many trips after that and never could find a thing.
Wow.
Again,
so that
makes
was
you wonder about that time slip,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Walk
yeah.
into another area of time, and count yourself lucky you got to walk back out.
Yeah. I mean, it was just very strange, and just the feeling we got walking back with those eyes in the forest, and it was just quite I don't know, it was just terrifying, and it was at the time it felt like an adventure, but we were scared.
What's your take on that, Waverly? I know you're very familiar with NC folklore and stories. Did the Devil's Tramping Ground fall under your expertise?
Well, I've only been out there once, and it just, these sort of things, sometimes you can go and like I said, you never know what's going to occur or if anything's going to occur, and we didn't really have much going on that night we were there.
Well, what are your thoughts on the house? Because that is definitely an eerie and
that's an interesting story.
I swear that seems like a time slip.
I mean, that's
something.
That could be a possibility. That's definitely an odd thing to happen.
Any opinions from the people listening? You can chime in here. I haven't seen anybody make a comment in a while, but I'm curious what your thoughts are on this subject. I will say this about the Devil's Triangle. This is not just, I haven't been to the one in North Carolina, but I will say if you look around the United States, there are a lot of locations across the United States that have places called the Devil's Triangle, the Devil's Stomping Ground, the Devil's Circle, the Devil's Den. And a lot of that, I think, leads back to probably we were probably a little bit more in tune with nature, the 100 to 150 years ago when we settled these places, or 200 250 years ago when we settled some of these places. They got that name for a reason. I know I've heard of the one here in North Carolina, and the reason, that nothing grows in that circle. Mm-hmm. But there was Devil's Den and Devil's Glen, and I've been to quite a few places that have the word devil in it, and some of them have folklore to them that talk about, half goat, half man. Some of them talk about just people disappearing, or violent animals, or in this case, his stomping grounds where he just, pounds around and makes sure that nothing grows or nothing lives. But I'd have to think that if we look, and maybe somebody needs to do a little research on that. Maybe somebody needs to look into all those locations, do a little bit of research into the history of each of those locations, and see if there isn't some commonality between them that may lead us to a better understanding what's going on there.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some kind of common factor involved with all of them. If there's a reason that they labeled it this, there's got to be.
Beluga Studios, and Jordan B says he may have trouble sleeping tonight, and Beluga Studios saying the same. Yeah, this is kind of a spooky episode. I'm digging it. I'm definitely enjoying the conversation. I hope you all are too, those of you who have logged in and listened tonight, and those of you who will listen in the future. It's amazing what the Midnight Cafe can take you.
That's right. Wow. Anything else exciting from the Devil's Tramping Ground, Keith?
Oh, well, there were a couple things, actually. We showed up there one night, and, there were other people there, just like the trip that Waverly took, when you go, especially if you went on a Saturday night, at least when we went, there were other people that would go. And, I noticed it was pretty late. It was late at night, and I noticed there was a glow above the ring. If you walk towards it, it would disappear. And it was just like a ring, probably about 3 feet, above the circle. And it was just kind of a faint glow.
That almost makes
if you walk towards it.
I just can't help but wonder then if maybe there isn't something in the earth below, or a phenomenon above that's causing plant life and stuff not to grow. Maybe there's a magnetic field, or I wonder if they've done any research on that. That's very interesting.
I mean, it could be some kind of reflection from the moon or something. Maybe the dirt is something salty. Who knows? And it reflects the light. But yeah, if you walk towards it, it would just kind of disappear. And yeah, that was weird. And the other thing that was strange was my buddy had this metal cane, or this metal kind of bar that was about 3 feet long. And one time we were there, and he kind of pushed it in the ground for some reason. And this is going to sound really weird, but he pushed this thing. It was about a 1/2 inch diameter, just a bar, and I guess he carried it, in case somebody, I don't know, probably as a weapon, probably.
Some guy just got out of prison, came and tried to attack him.
Yeah, you got it.
There are some weird folks hanging around the woods.
That's right. In case we're riding with someone who just got out of prison to some strange house and decides to rob us or something. So anyway, but yeah, he pushes it into the ground. I forget, maybe 3 or 4 inches, and then he lets go of it, and it drops out of sight.
Really?
Yeah, I am serious.
Now that is
interesting. And I am not lying.
I wouldn't go after it if I were you.
So then there's this hole in the ground, and we drop a few firecrackers down there, and they don't go off.
Wow.
So now that's the first thing a boy thinks about, a guy. Okay, there's this hole in the ground.
Drop some firecrackers down there.
Let's try and drop some firecrackers.
That's actually exactly what I would have done at that age.
I'm not lying, because that's exactly the first thing we thought about. We had some firecrackers, so we dropped firecrackers down there. I am not lying. But they never went off.
Yep. Hey, we got some really interesting comments here.
Yeah.
Jamaican Dog is chiming in.
Well, that's about all I got. That's my whole life.
Jamaican Dog saying he's asking if you didn't try to take the books, or he's telling you if you didn't try to take the books, there wouldn't have been eyes in the woods trying to make you leave those things in the time they belong. But then Beluga Studios asking, he wants to know if you still have those books. Did you leave them all behind, or did you?
Well, good question, because I don't know what happened to my book. And my good friend Bill he had his book, and I he passed away about 5 years ago, and as far as I know, he still has his book. And I asked him about it, and he told me, what date it was. I think it was the first edition of I believe he said a dictionary, and or some, I'm not sure about that, but I'm still in contact with his wife, and I'm still in contact with the two other people, Mike. I don't want to say any last names, but yeah, Mike and another Bill. I'm still in contact with Facebook of both of them. I need to ask them if they still have their books.
I'd be very curious to find out about those books, see what they are. Maybe there's maybe there's some differences. Maybe they're not exactly from our universe.
Yeah, that'd be amazing to look up and see if they're the same way and if they're still.
Very cool I will contact the two guys that are still around from that trip and see if they still have their books.
Awesome, that would be awesome.
Well, Keith, thank you very much. Appreciate having you on the show. I thought it's just amazing. It's amazing that really, it's like life comes full circle sometimes, and this is one of those moments when the guy that gets you pretty much set up and rolling in pirate radio, again, let me use the quotes, pirate radio, fully legal, 1670.
Sounds a little flashy, sure.
Yeah. I like the sound. Pirate just sounds way cooler, doesn't it? Absolutely. Yeah. So part 15, that's like, okay, well, that sounds very technical. How about pirate? Yeah, let's go with pirate. Anyway, I think both of us want to thank you for that, because you got us started on this path, and look at what 20 years does, man. Now we're live streaming to the entire world.
That's right. That's right.
Appreciate the conversation, man. You'll have to chime in another night. Let us know about those books.
I will. I'll check and I'll let you guys know. Take care.
Awesome. Take care.
All right. Good night. Bye.
And guys, if anybody else out there wants to chime in and tell a story you've had, something weird, unexplained, phenomena,
that was pretty good. That was definitely freaky. I like that.
Yeah, that was. What do you think, Waverly?
Yeah, I would be curious about the books as well. If you had one of the books that they have, and then if you could get your hands on another copy,
exactly what I was
like
thinking.
you said. One if there's any minute differences. A lot of strange things out there. So who knows?
So it's just that really, I'm very interested in that. I hope we hear back from Keith some other night. That's really cool.
So we got a couple comments here. It said from Audio Slave, says, I've noticed that most of the reported hauntings in the old country seem to happen in castles, keeps, and older dungeons. But in the U.S., most creepy spots are in the southern antebellum homes. And that might go back to the structural aspect of it that Waverly was talking about earlier, the stone and all
composition of the earth below, the composition of the stones, the building materials.
And then Jamaica Dog says all the spooks are in the south because they can't stand the northerners. PG show.
Yes, with PG there.
What do you think about that? You think the structure had something to do with it when they refer to a bunch of castles and old dungeons? You mentioned earlier something about the stone and the concrete potentially showing more activity.
Well, I've always thought that was a possibility with the stone, particularly if it had certain mineral contents as well as for example, like quartz. I don't know. Maybe that helps from a conductivity standpoint. I'm not sure. Yeah, it's an interesting comment. I'd love to go down, and makes me think about Myrtle's plantation. I'd love to get down there one day.
Yeah.
In Louisiana.
Now let me ask you, Waverly. I just recollected a personal experience that I had. It's not in North Carolina, but I want to get your thoughts on it since when I was living in Mississippi, I had a job very similar to yours where we went to a lot of people's homes. And we went to this one house. It was actually more borderline Louisiana. Old house. It was gorgeous. It was an old plantation house. You could tell it was old. When we got there, we walked in, nobody was home. There was red brick dust all over the place, and the house was full of dead bees. Like straight up dead bees all over the place, in the bedding, on the floor, in the shelves. And there were circles of brick dust in every room with X's in them, and we didn't do the job. We left. It freaked me out.
Dude,
it truly did.
I think that'd be.
I know it's not necessarily paranormal, but I mean,
that's weird. Though.
Does that go into? Do you think that voodoo and the paranormal are linked together, or is it something completely different?
I do. I mean, it's it's definitely a form of paranormal, and I had some might brush it off, but to me at the time it felt very much tied to paranormal as well as a voodoo experience at a plantation in broad daylight, a place that I would frequently go to investigate. And we had been out there all day, and I had become used to having things happen out there. It was that frequent.
Wow.
And nothing had occurred on that particular day. And so, I guess I was being a little bit grumpy or what have you, and kind of a condescending.
Uh-oh. Lost somebody.
Oh, yeah, what happened to Skype here? Well, I hope we're still here. Let me check this out and make sure. Yeah, we're still alive.
Okay, good.
Okay, well, we lost Waverly for a few seconds here, but go ahead. And Cat Lover saying she's enjoying it. Cool stuff. Don't think I've ever experienced ghosts, but I don't discard them. Love to hear these stories. Me too. The thing that Art Bell taught me, and the thing that Coast to Coast continues to teach me, and hopefully this show will continue to teach those of you out here that watch it, is keep an open mind. You never really know. It's good not to just be like, there's no way that's real. Because I'll tell you what, a lot more of it's real than you care to imagine.
Real in one way or the other.
Big A is chiming in. Great show, guys. Beluga Studios say the spirits don't want him to finish the story. It's possible. It's possible.
It truly is.
I know. I've had my own experiences with ghosts, and like I said, my time slip story, which I feel,
which is amazing.
I wasn't hallucinating that. I wasn't imagining that. I was, I'd had my cup of coffee, and it was, I was awake and coherent. I wasn't hungover. I wasn't anything. I was just me, normal me, going about my business. But for that brief moment, I realized I had stepped into a future, or at least it appeared to me to be the future, and it wasn't a pretty happy one either.
No.
It looked like that place had been abandoned for a while. And so I think there's a lot more out there than we'll ever understand, and I love trying to figure some of it out.
That's right.
So love Art Bell, miss him. Yeah, Cat Lover, me too. I think that's, when you come to this show, I know we pale in comparison to anything Art has ever done, but that's the goal, that's the aim. We're trying to run a show like that, let all sides speak, not make it too political or political at all if we can, and talk about some cool stuff you may or may not even be aware of. I know the whole first, hour of this show, we talked about nothing but space, and now look at us, we're talking about, time slips, devils. I mean, gosh, everything. Ghosts, the devil, Ouija boards, where the world takes us, doesn't it? Amazing. And that's what I love about open format shows like this, is that, we can take a call. Keith popping in like that had a great story that kind of led us down a different path there. If any of y'all want to call, we've still got about 10, 15 minutes. We'll go a little bit into overtime like we did last weekend, since we were delayed a few minutes because of the little issue we had there. But love to hear from one or two more of you, and love to hear a story, or if you just want to chat about anything, we'll talk about anything. Like I said, I'm pretty well versed. So is Jason. I think we're doing all right. 20 years in the business.
Come on, look at us. We're practically professionals.
Geez, seriously. God.
But I love it when Eric, reminds everybody to keep an open mind, because we're here presenting these stories too. I learned something new tonight. I never once considered a time slip to be a part of that ghost story. I've never, it just adds a whole nother dynamic to it and a whole nother perspective, and it just makes it even that more real for me. So I hope you guys are able to, pull some sort of the same experience away from it.
Yeah. Anybody else want to give us a shot? Let me see make sure that Skype's even open. Uh-oh.
Something happened.
Oh, I think I might have logged me out. That's interesting. All right, let me try this.
Well, I was watching you. You didn't log it out.
I didn't push any. Uh-oh.
Something went wrong.
Sign
dun,
in.
dun, dun.
I think we're done with. Apparently, we're done with that for tonight.
Yeah.
Let me try to log that one back.
That's a little.
That was not a happy sign there.
It crashed on you.
Might have to just run this one out solo here. I'm gonna try to load that again, but that didn't look like a happy sign. Let's go. It says Midnight Cafe.
Trying to let him know.
Nope. Looks like we're not going to be taking any more Skype calls tonight. Not sure what happened there, but bummer.
You type it out and we'll act as your voice.
That's right. That? Yeah, let's see here.
Hewlett Baker. There's a paranormal legend here in Arkansas called the Gurdon Light. Am I pronouncing that correctly? Info readily available on the internet. Yeah, if you guys want to send me your stories, send me your names. I'll go through after the show and tomorrow, and I'll start posting these stories on our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram pages. We can share them with everybody.
Yeah, send us a message. You can send a message to the Midnight Cafe at hotmail.com. You can send it to rockinwoody at gmail.com. No,
rockinwoody 1670.
1670 at gmail. And if all else fails, you can always contact me through the Farpoint Farms email. So please get in touch with me. And again, if you have somebody you think would be good for the show to have on, get in contact with them, give them our contact info, and we'd be happy to have them on. Have you heard of ham operators picking up QSOs from silent keys? Yes, and that does freak me out. So that, Jason, I know you're not big into ham or CB, but so QSO cards are like if I make a contact halfway across the country or all the way across the country or all the way across the world, right? I want to have sometimes a memory of that and be like, well, who am I talking with? And they'll give you their call sign, but they'll also sometimes send a QSO card to your house or whatnot. Mm-hmm. But sometimes, and this isn't so much the cards that I've heard of, but just making contacts with dead hams who are deceased but are still on the radio talking. Yeah. So it's a phenomenon that does happen. It happens on CB as well, but it happens much more often now on ham because it's a little easier to track with call signs and stuff. But yeah, that's something that's out there. Yeah, I have heard of that. It freaks me out. I've never had that experience myself, but it gives me the chills thinking about talking to a dead man. But I'm sure it happens. I mean, it's an electric medium. It's probably a way for your spirit to travel through those waves if that was where you wanted to be in life, or in death.
Absolutely. Yeah, I can imagine that being completely plausible.
Audio Slave says it's weird how when someone sees a UFO, the first response is to disprove the sighting. But not so with spirits. The first response is where, and then they walk in the opposite direction. There's a ghost over there? I'm going this way, yeah. UFOs, I guess we want to stare up at them, never waiting for the laser beam to come and blow us all to smithereens, right?
Yeah. I think with a spirit, though, it's a little more real because, they can walk through walls. They can follow you. It's not just as easy as walking away from them.
Psycho for Use chiming in, it will take time to get it all worked out. It's true. I don't know what happened with this Skype thing. It was working absolutely beautiful, and now it says there's a problem. So maybe they think I don't know what they would think. Maybe we were doing something wrong with Skype, but, who knows?
We'll find out.
We'll figure it out. I have a whole week to get that worked out, and I promise we will do that. I'm just glad it wasn't a night when we were doing the show together over Skype because we'll be rolling solo here for the next 15. That's good. So
you do just fine.
The movie Frequency was interesting. Yeah, man. So Frequency is kind of like he's picking up isn't his dead father's voice through the ham radio set. So it's kind of a cool, freaky movie. He's warning him about something, but to be honest with you, I can't remember the whole plot line, but I do remember it being spooky enough. Beluga Studio says it could be the radio wave still trapped in the atmosphere. True. So there's atmospheric bounce. I suppose it's possible to have atmospheric bounce that just keeps going, but I do wonder how you would have a coherent conversation with a dead man.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. How would that be? Because he would have to be responding to your questions. It would be rare for it to just happen to work out.
Yeah, it's one thing to hear a dead man's voice, but to hear it respond would be a bigger difference. And again, we talked about the difference between like the residual haunting versus him having an interactive haunting when he was on, and then Waverly was talking about how he's had an interactive haunting. So that would be kind of an interactive ham haunting, I guess. Interesting. Zach Watts is saying some local hams have talked of that. Yeah, it's a real phenomenon. There's probably a couple stories out there. Hey, you know what? Maybe for Halloween on the Farpoint channel, I'll come up with a couple of good stories and we'll put one together. I'll make a video of that, and we can just kind of have that as a lead into that. But yeah, there are some real stories. Spooky stuff out there in the world, isn't there? Well, I think, we're almost there.
I think we're getting that time.
About that time, isn't it? An amazing third episode of the Midnight Cafe, and one that I promise y'all will not see. Very likely to be anytime soon again, I'm sorry to say.
No, unfortunately. We're hours away from each other.
Yeah,
so.
Life kind of gets in the way. But I am very happy that I got the opportunity to work tonight with Jason in person. I think the show works a whole lot better when the two of us can sit down. And as soon as Clear Channel picks us up and starts paying us $500,000 a piece, per episode, of course.
Right? Oh, of course.
I mean, totally.
Not a penny less either.
That's right. We'll just
20 years. Come on.
We'll just roll out some sleeping bags in the studio, and this is where we'll be all the time. Because for that kind of money, I'm 24/7, bro.
That's right.
I hope you all enjoyed the show. I know I've enjoyed making it. Next week, when we're back to our normal schedule, where he's in Raleigh or Fayetteville, and I'm all the way up in the mountains of North Carolina. We will be discussing the 411, which was this week's original show plan, which is missing people in national forests. If you're not familiar with it, we'll get into some of the really scary stories about people just disappearing, and we'll talk about what the possibilities are there. Were they abducted? Were they, who knows? We'll get into all the weirdness there, because there's a lot of
there's a lot of weirdness.
Stuff that continues every year. More people disappear. So I hope you'll join us for that next week. Got a few more comments coming in here. Ham saying radio's a mystery. Good show from Beluga Studios. Appreciate it. Psycho for you. Good episode. Yes, man. Great. Cat Lover saying, so glad to catch you live and got to comment. We will be watching you next week. Thanks, guys.
Awesome.
Cat Lover.
Great. Thank you, Cat Lover.
Awesome, man. I appreciate it. Very informative. Great. So everyone's pretty happy. I'm happy. You're happy. We're happy.
We're happy. We're all just happy all around.
One thing I want to ask the 24 of you and those of you who listen to this broadcast later, actually a few things I want to throw in there. Please spread the word about the Midnight Cafe. Spread the word about the show. This is kind of an unusual show for YouTube. This is kind of a blog type show, but we're here live on YouTube because that's where I chose to be, and I think we can make this work. Spread the word. Let other people know. Saturdays, 7 p.m. Eastern till whenever, and we'll be here. And also remember, this is free to air, so if you want to take this video or take the audio from this show and rebroadcast it on a pirate radio station of your own or rebroadcast it around the web, you are free to do so until further notice, and I think that further notice will probably be quite a while down the road. Probably after the first year, if we see an increase in membership, maybe we'll slow that down a bit. But as far as pirate radio, it will always be free to air.
And please feel free to come out and check out our Instagram, Twitter, Tumblr pages as well. We tweet out regular updates throughout the week, and weekday midnight review with yours truly every Wednesday night. So
Jason has really taken the helms on the social media side of this. I am. It's a miracle I ever learned how to use YouTube.
and I'm still learning, so if you got any insight, be sure to send me my way.
He's sending me links of all these awesome social media sites that he's signed us up to, and I'm just giving him the thumbs up and telling him, keep at it, my man, keep at it. So great job there, Jason. I appreciate it. Once again, thank you to all of you. Jason, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you making the trip from Fayetteville.
Absolutely. So
history.
Pleasure, my friend.
Take care. Everybody have a good night. We're going to lead out with another one of those great songs from Marky Shaw, and that will do us in for this evening. See you again next week, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Do the old Beverly Hillbillies wave. Bye-bye.
The static on the radio. Out of the corner of my eyes, I'm catching shadows. I feel it breathing down the back of my neck, living where reality and fantasy intersect. Like they tell me to do everything I'm supposed to do. So why, tell me why am I nothing? Am I nothing? I take my pills like they ask of me. I spend my time solitarily. So why should I cry over nothing? Over nothing. Through the static on the radio. Out of the corner of my eyes, I'm catching shadows. I feel it breathing down the back of my neck, living where reality and fantasy intersect. down the back of my neck, living where reality and fantasy intersect. I feel it breathing down the back of my neck, living where reality and fantasy intersect. I take my pills like they ask of me. I spend my time solitarily, so why should I cry over nothing, over nothing? I take my pills like a good boy should, tell everyone that I'm feeling good, so why should I die?